My husband brought back a beautiful woman from the border. He shielded her behind him and said to me seriously, "This is Lu Qingqing, my mentor's only daughter. She is newly widowed and will temporarily stay at the residence under our care. As the lady of the house, you must be understanding and not be petty or jealous, lest you lose decorum." My gaze swept over the woman's slightly bulging belly, and I said gently, "Miss Lu, your condition. Could it be that you're carrying your late husband's posthumous child?" His expression changed drastically and he scolded, "Qingqing is merely suffering from acclimatization and abdominal bloating. How dare you slander a woman's reputation? Ding, the child in Lu Qingqing's belly has turned into feces." The next second, a mechanical voice sounded in my mind. "I forgot to tell my husband that I've been bound to a Li's Jian Come Jian True system. My husband Li Shuyuan is the Marquis of Jining. He went on a military campaign by imperial decree and was gone for 3 years. Unexpectedly, he brought back a beautiful woman. A flash of guilt crossed his eyes, yet he still uttered those cold words. Wife, Qingqing is my mentor's daughter. She is newly widowed and has been mistreated by her in Zan laws. I absolutely cannot stand by and do nothing." He paused, then added another sentence. "She'll only temporarily stay at the residence under our care. As the lady of the house, you must be understanding and not be petty or jealous, lest you lose decorum." Hearing this, my gaze calmly settled on his face, my heart feeling like it had been doused with a basin of cold water. Back then, before he even had time for our wedding night, he was ordered to go to war. I burn incense and worship Buddha every day, praying that I can live the good life of getting promoted, getting rich, and my husband dying. I never expected that not only did he come back alive, but he actually brought back a pregnant woman. Truly unlucky. Tomorrow I'll have Shuzhou tear down that little Buddhist shrine, but on the surface I still need to maintain the dignified and magnanimous demeanor of the Marchioness. My gaze swept over the woman's slightly protruding belly, and I spoke gently. "Miss Lu, your condition. Could it be that you're carrying your late husband's posthumous child? If so, you absolutely cannot be left to wander outside." His expression changed drastically, and he rebuked. "Stop talking nonsense. Qingqing's husband passed away over a year ago, and she has a weak constitution, making it extremely difficult for her to conceive. How dare you speak so recklessly and ruin a woman's reputation?" Lu Qingqing, hiding behind Li Shuyuan, felt extremely wronged. "If Madam is unwilling to take me in, just say so. Why must you humiliate me like this?" Though already married, she still possessed a maiden Zan-like fragility that evoked sympathy. The crowd at the door spoke up to criticize me. The Marquise is truly devoted and righteous, willing to take in his mentor's daughter. The Marchioness is actually this jealous, unable to tolerate anyone. I heard that the Marquis was once betrothed to Miss Lu, but the Lu family broke off the engagement when the Marquise's household fell into decline. Unable to care about those whispers stabbing at my back, I hastily removed the translucent jade bracelet from my wrist and shoved it into Lu Qingqing's cold hands without giving her a chance to refuse. Li Shuyuan sneered. "Qingqing is of noble character and has always disdained these gold and silver trinkets. You think she is like you, loving these vulgar things. How can they be vulgar things? A bracelet with such fine quality jade, you won't find more than a few in all of the capital. I'm a merchant's daughter. On my wedding day, I married into the Marquise's household with a dowry of 10 Zanli red makeup accumulated over 3 generations of the XU family. All the guests who came to congratulate couldn't help but exclaim in admiration." He merely tossed out coolly, "Such extravagance truly reeks of money." Huh, what a phony. But back then, the Marquise's household was so destitute, they had to sell off even their ancestral lands. If they hadn't been eyeing the Shu family's wealth, how would this marriage have fallen to me? People of the world admire elegance, yet it is money that moves hearts most. My tone was earnest. "Sister, please don't be upset. It is I who misspoke. I wasn't thoughtful enough. Consider this bracelet an apology. Please accept it. Don't let it hurt your health. Good that she is not pregnant. Good that she is not. Because I've bound myself to the lies come true system. That is right. All lies told in my presence will eventually become true. I'm the most gentle and kind, Jan-hearted person. I can't stand the sight of blood, if there really was a child in her belly. But it disappeared because of the system in the end. That would truly be a sin. To be safe, I turned to Li Shuyuan again. my expression full of concern. Husband, Sister Lu's condition does seem unwell. Whether or not, we should still invite a physician to the residence for a thorough examination. Before Li Shuyuan could speak, Lu Qingqing immediately threw down the bracelet I had given her. Clangs in a crisp sound. The jade bracelet, worth a fortune and flawlessly lustrous, instantly shattered into several pieces. Her chest heaved violently, her expression both broken and resolute. I originally thought you were sincerely apologizing. Now it seems it was just a delaying tactic to verify my true identity. I told you, I've just been traveling for days, unaccustomed to the local climate. Bloated and uncomfortable. Must I humiliate myself in public before you'll believe me? I, Lu Qingqing, would rather starve to death on the streets than use my reputation as a ploy. If Madam doesn't believe me, I can crash into this hall pillar right now and die to prove my innocence. As soon as she finished speaking, a mechanical, cold voice rang out in my mind and, ding, the child in Lu Qingqing's belly has turned into feces. I couldn't help but widen my eyes, still not comprehending what the system meant. Then came a series of PFFT sounds. Lu Qingqing clutched her stomach with a pained expression, continuous farting noises coming from beneath her dress. Then a foul stench wafted over. The common folk watching at the door sniffed. What is that smell? It stinks so bad. Who shit themselves? Stop everything. This is hands down the most savage punishment in literary history. The mistress lied about being pregnant to force her way into the house, so the system turned her baby into poop. A belly full of poop. And then she exploded in front of the entire neighborhood. The humiliation, the smell, the sheer audacity. Karma didn't just bite her, it gave her devastating diarrhea in public. I am screaming. I stared in shock at the yellow stain seeping through Lu Qingqing's clothes and screamed out, "Oh my God, Miss Lu, are you shitting yourself in the street?" The servants near her had long since covered their noses and run 3 meters away. Lu Qingqing didn't react for a moment either, her face deathly pale Dan, whether from holding in her shit or from being sickened by her own farts. No, Brother Shuyuan, save me quickly, my stomach hurts so much," Lu Qingqing babbled incoherently in her own defense. But unfortunately, the more agitated she got, the louder her farts became. Well, after all, her bulging belly was loaded with quite a bit of cargo, and how could it all be emptied out in just a short while? Seeing Lu Qingqing crying so pitifully, Li Shuyuan could no longer hold back and roared, "Shuji, if you slander Qingqing again, I'll divorce you." Li Shuyuan had just stepped forward when he was nearly made to vomit by the pervasive stench. I was only concerned about Lady Lu. I looked at Li Shuyuan in shock, covering my face as I sobbed. "Husband, you always say I'm a merchant's daughter, and despise me for reeking of copper. So it turns out you like the smell of shit." Li Shuyuan felt extremely humiliated. "What nonsense are you spouting? Why don't you go get?" He stopped mid-Dan sentence, his face ashen. "Qingqing is just not acclimatized to the local conditions. She'll be fine after some rest." The onlooking common folk covered their noses and mocked. "This marquise's manner is really too stingy, won't even call for a doctor. I get it now. This Lady Lu is a weasel reincarnated. She is a demon." Li Shuyuan harshly scolded the servants, ordering them to help Lu Qingqing into the manor. But no one was willing. They all hid far away. After all, Lu Qingqing right now was like a spear covered in shit, and whoever she touched would die. Li Shuyuan could only vent his anger at me. "How are you managing the Marquis manor? The servants are so disobedient. Heaven and earth as my witness before he came back. The servants of the Marquis manor following me were famously obedient, and well-dan behaved, never once slacking off. My mother was right. A person can owe a butt-dan load of debt, but can't owe a butt-dan load of shit." In the end, I had Shuzhou take some reward money to find a few night soil workers to carry Lu Qingqing into the manor. Looking at Lu Qingqing's clothes covered in shit and the pervasive, indescribable stench, I felt a bit sad. Alas, my Marquis manor is no longer clean. Lu Qingqing spent a day and night in the latrine, almost fainting to death. The maids covered their noses going in and out, changing water and adding paper, not daring to say much. In the end, it was the old lady of the Marquis manor who stepped in and invited an imperial physician to the manor. Lady Lu indeed has trouble adjusting to the climate and water, with gastrointestinal stagnation and bloating that is hard to relieve. Now that the diarrhea has passed, it is actually good for the illness. He paused, seemingly puzzled. It is just the amount and duration of this excretion. In my 40 years of practicing medicine, this is the first time I've seen it. Perhaps Lady Lu's body is different from others, but there is no danger to her life. The Marquise and the old madam need not worry. Lu Qingqing's face was pale as paper, her breath faint as a thread, unable to speak for quite a while. Li Shuyuan frowned tightly. He stared at Lu Qingqing's now flat lower abdomen and asked stiffly, "It is really just bloating, not pregnancy." Before he could finish speaking, the old madam cut him off. "Yuan drank today and hasn't sobered up from his nonsense yet." She fingered her prayer beads, frowned as she glanced at Lu Qingqing, and said coldly, "Lady Lu is newly widowed. How could she be pregnant? You are now a general. Why bother dirtying your own ears with those filthy schemes from the inner quarters?" Li Shuyuan's Adam's apple bobbed, thinking Lu Qingqing had faked pregnancy to deceive him. He could only shut his mouth resentfully. Lu Qingqing also felt very wronged. She had planned to use the child in her belly to gain entry into the household and usurp the magpie's nest, but now it had turned into a belly full of shit, being despised by the old madam on top of that. She finally rolled her eyes back and fainted. "Ah, who told you to run into me? My make Jian lies, Jian come Jian true system has never failed. I understood one principle since I was little. Grind mad bones into a blade. No need to worship gods or Buddhas. In this world, the only one who can fulfill me has always been myself alone. Host, please select the system you wish to bind." The moment that mechanical voice appeared in my mind, all the blood in my body boiled. Not from fear, but from excitement. When it asked me which type of setting I wanted to bind, there was a fertility system that could give me 10 babies in one pregnancy. There was a succubus system that would make all the men in the capital fall for me. But I didn't hesitate to choose the lies Jian become Jian truth system, because in my dictionary, letting bygones be bygones means, since you've passed away, I can let it go. My two favorite phrases are haggle over every penny and repay every slight. What I hate most is forgive others when you can. Shuizhou anxiously said to me, "Miss, the Marquise has been staying at Yilan Garden these past few days accompanying Lady Lu. How is this proper?" Yilan Garden was originally the courtyard where Li Shuyuan and I got married. Li Shuyuan made me move out on the grounds that Lu Qingqing's health was poor and she needed quiet rest. Well, after all, Yilan Garden does have the biggest outhouse. This servant has found out clearly these past 2 days Dan Lu Qingqing and the Marquise were childhood sweethearts. But back then, when the Marquise's family fell on hard times, Lu Qingqing married into the Qinghe Kuai clan for wealth and glory. Later, the Lu family was implicated in an embezzlement case. All the men were beheaded, and the women were reduced to lowly status. The second son of the Kui family died of serious illness, and the Kui family despised Lu Qingqing as unlucky, believing she brought death to her husband and father, so they threw her on an estate. When the Marquis returned to the capital, he brought her back from the estate, claiming it was to repay a debt of gratitude. I think he wants to make her the Marquise's wife. I finally seen through it, Dan, when the Marquis married you back then. He was simply using your dowry to fill the Marquis household's holes, feeding off a family with no male heirs. Miss, this Marquis manor is a wolf's den, not our home. Yeah, of course I know this is a wolf's den. Otherwise, how could my system have gone killed and crazy? My sister Jan and Jan Law, Li Shuyuan's biological older sister Li Jingyuan, barged into my room and arrogantly mocked me. Good thing you know your place, giving up Yilan Garden to Sister Lu. Sister Lu's father is a former Hanlon scholar, a true scholarly family of noble status, a talented lady proficient in music, chess, calligraphy and painting, and not something a mere merchant's daughter like you can compare to. She looked me up and down like I was an outdated old garment. I advise you to know your place, request your own divorce, and give up the position of the Marquis Manor's wife. It'll save everyone from embarrassment later, and we'll all save face. Ha, on what grounds? I haven't committed any of the 7 grounds for divorce. On the contrary, it is Li Shuyuan and Lu Qingqing Jian one, a married man, one a newly widowed woman Jian who fornicated without a matchmaker, and even made a bastard child together. If it weren't for my lies come true system, who knows what kind of conspiracy and schemes would be waiting for me? On what grounds should I become a divorced woman to fulfill their loving bliss, to let them enjoy all the glory and wealth in their dreams? Before I could even open my mouth, Shuizhou beside me couldn't hold it in anymore. Her voice was trembling. "Eldest miss, My mistress has treated you well since marrying in. Even your marriage arrangement with second young Master Pei of the minister's manor was something my mistress begged for on your behalf. How could you say such ungrateful words? Before I married into the Lai family, Li Jingyuan was already 18 years old, yet still not betrothed to anyone. Her appearance was plain, her talents ordinary, but she thought highly of herself, and was determined to marry into a prestigious household. My mother Jan and Zan Law worried endlessly about her lifelong affairs every day, while Li Shuyuan was far away at the border, with no one to make arrangements for her. Lady Pei had been lending money through underground banks all along. It just so happened that the court was strictly investigating officials involved in money lending during that period. It was I who helped cover for Lady Pi, which led to this marriage arrangement. Li Jingyuan's expression stiffened for a moment. Embarrassed and furious, she shrieked. It was Lady Pei who took a liking to me and agreed to the marriage between me and the second young master. What does it have to do with you? Stop trying to take credit for yourself. Your Shu family has such a lowly background, 3 generations of merchants, reeking of money. If you hadn't had the dog Dan shit luck to marry Shu Yuan, you wouldn't even be able to touch the main gate of the minister's residence, and you dare say you arranged it. Sister Lu is the one worthy of being my sister. What are you even? How dare you? After saying this, she raised her hand to slap Shui Zhou across the face. I reached out and firmly grasped Li Jingyuan's wrist, my dark eyes fixed on her, as I asked each word extremely softly. Do you truly want to be sisters with Lu Qingqing? She froze, then let out a scornful laugh, as if she'd heard the biggest joke in the world. If I don't be sisters with her, should I be sisters with you instead? Oh, the delicious irony. The nasty sister Jian and Jian Law, Jingyuan, wanted to team up with the mistress to bully our heroine. So the system said, you want to be sisters. Fine. Now you have to share everything Jian, including your fiancé. Jingyuan went from smug bully to getting dumped and replaced by the very woman she championed. Be careful who you call sister, sweetie, because the system takes things very literally. Then, her eyes darted around, and she suddenly changed her expression, looking at me with an ambiguous smile. But, she drew out her tone, if you're willing to give me that phoenix blood jade bracelet of yours, and give me that hot spring villa in the suburbs as my trousseau, and finally, give that ruby jewelry set of yours to Sister Lu as an apology. She looked at me with a beaming smile, like tossing a bone to a stray dog on the roadside. I didn't say anything, just looked back at her with a beaming smile as well. The system's mechanical voice exploded in my mind. Beep. Li Jingyuan and Lu Qingqing have bound a sister's card. Right after that, Li Jingyuan's personal maid rushed in frantically, her face deathly pale. Miss, something terrible has happened. Young Master Pei and the Marquise are fighting. The second young master, he publicly said, the maid stammered, her face flushing red, said he wants to marry Miss Lu as an equal wife, to have her marry alongside you. Li Jingyuan's smile froze on her face. By the time we arrived at Yilin Courtyard, the scene had already descended into chaos. Pei had been kicked to the ground by Li Shuyuan, his hat askew, his robe in disarray, with blood still at the corner of his mouth. Li Shuyuan wasn't much better off either, with a bruise around his eye and half his sleeve torn open, looking quite disheveled. Lu Qingqing hid in his embrace, both hands clutching his lapel. Her face flushed red, and whether from anger or embarrassment was unclear. After all, even when Pi was beaten to the ground, his mouth still had no filter. Sweet talk one after another, flirty as hell. Qingqing, why are you hiding in his arms? Whatever he can give you, I can give too. He is just a general, isn't he? I'm the second young master of the minister's manor. Li Shuyuan's forehead veins throbbed. Shut your mouth. I won't shut up. Heir completely ignored Li Shuyuan's murderous glare. Don't worry. Once you enter the door, I absolutely won't mistreat you. Let Jingyuan be the primary wife, and you can be an equal wife on par with her. You two can call each other sisters and look after one another. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Li Jingyuan stood at the doorway, her face turning green. Pei, she shrieked. What nonsense are you spouting? Only then did Pei notice her, giving her a perfunctory glance. Oh Jingyuan, you came at just the right time. Perfect. Let's lay everything out, Dan. Don't worry, the primary position is still yours. Ching Ching will be secondary. From now on, you two will address each other as sisters and get along well. Don't make things difficult for this young master. But if you can't tolerate Ching Ching, then I'll just have to reluctantly elevate her to primary wife. So this is how the system's sister card is meant to be used. Excellent, excellent. From now on, any man who has a marriage agreement with Li Jingyuan must also take Lu Qingqing as a wife. The two serving one husband together, truly like real sisters. Li Jingyuan was greatly stimulated by this scene and grabbed Lu Qingqing's hair, yanking it hard outward. Caught off guard, Lu Qingqing was dragged out of Li Shuyuan's arms and fell to the ground, screaming, "You shameless slut! It is one thing to seduce my brother, but you dare seduce my fiancée Fei." Slap, one slap after another, completely different from her earlier demeanor of wanting to be sisters with Lu Qingqing. People's hearts are truly fickle. Sisters 1 second, slapping you the next. In the end, it was Li Shuyuan who pulled Li Jingyuan away and rescued Lu Qingqing. Unfortunately, Li Jingyuan was used to being domineering at home and showed no mercy when she struck. Lu Qingqing's delicate face was now so swollen that her eyes and brows were squeezed together, tear stains covering her entire face, looking just like a pig's head that had been on the offering table for 3 days, Dan red and glistening. The sight made me a bit hungry, so I whispered to Shuzhou to have the small kitchen prepare braised pork elbow tonight. Li Shuyuan's face was frighteningly dark. He looked up at Li Jingyuan, his gaze cold as a blade. "Tomorrow morning, send the eldest miss to the countryside estate to rest. Without my word, she is not allowed to return. Also, go to the Pei family and convey my words. Dan, the engagement between Jingyuan and second master Pei is off." Everyone in the courtyard was stunned. This marriage arrangement in our marquee manor is reaching up to marry into the chancellor's manor, and you think we can just call it off? Li Jingyuan's eyes rolled back, and she fainted dead away. I lowered my head to look at the phoenix blood jade bracelet on my wrist. Warm, lustrous, and completely intact. Looks like my hot spring villa is safe. My ruby jewelry set is safe. And I don't even have to give away the bracelet as an apology. Perfect. The moonlight is beautiful tonight too. Dan, I've decided to eat 2 pork knuckles. Despite her mother Dan and Dan-law's desperate attempts to stop it, Li Jingyuan was still sent to the country estate that very night. She'd beaten Lu Qingqing into a pulp, and this time Li Shuyuan was truly enraged. He was now a general wielding real power with illustrious military achievements. No matter how much his mother doted on her daughter, she didn't dare undermine his authority in front of the servants. But she was unwilling to damage the mother-and-son bond either. So after thinking it over, she could only take out this frustration on me. My mother Dan and Zanlaw furrowed her brow and closed her eyes, her hands slowly working the sandalwood Buddhist prayer beads, making her face appear even more solemn and dignified. "You and you honor," she finally spoke, though her eyes remained closed, "have been married for 3 years now. Since he is back, it is time for you two to consummate the marriage." I had someone check the calendar. 5 days from now is an auspicious day. She paused, the prayer beads turning a circle between her fingers. "These few days, you should bathe and eat vegetarian food, and prepare with a calm heart. Don't touch any meat or fish, and don't go out and about either, lest you offend something. After all, it is the first times and the proper rules cannot be skipped." She finally opened her eyes and gave me a faint glance. "Since I've agreed to let you two consummate the marriage," she said unhurriedly, "you should be grateful. So many maids in this household are breaking their heads trying to get sent to Yuaner's room, and I haven't nodded to a single one. You should know in your heart how blessed you are." She turned the prayer beads 2 more times, then suddenly furrowed her brow as if remembering something. "As for the PI family, the marriage can't be formed, but we can't afford to offend the minister's household." She stared at me, her tone brooking no argument. "In a few days, you'll make a trip to the PI family and apologize to Madam PI." After a pause, she added another line. "Also, Jingyuan's marriage cannot be delayed. Keep an eye out for her and find another good family." She raised her eyes to look at me, her gaze filled with matter, of factness. "The family status cannot be lower than the PE household." Having said that, she stood up with her cane and walked right past me without so much as another glance. I looked down at myself, then looked up at the direction where my mother Jan and Zanlaw had disappeared outside the door. Is the old lady talking in her sleep? Make me bathe and fast, calm my mind and prepare, be grateful and indebted. Why the hell should I let a pig have me before getting screwed? I still have to wash myself clean and deliver myself to the door. After getting screwed, I still have to wipe my son's ass and go to the Pay family to grovel and apologize, and then find another sucker with a family status no lower than the minister's household for her daughter. I took a deep breath and whispered instructions in Shuzhou's ear. Lu Qingqing really didn't disappoint me. After hearing the news that Li Shuyuan wanted to consummate our marriage, that very night she dragged Li Shuyuan to the rockery in my courtyard to screw around. Shuzhou and I heard strange noises coming from the flower bushes, thinking it was some maid and servant boy being indecent. But it turned out to be these two shameless adulterers sweating profusely in the flowers, with Lu Qingqing's crimson mandarin duck bodice hanging on Li Shuyuan's belt. I can understand why she had the audacity to have an affair in my courtyard. She is now besieged on all sides. Without the trump card of a child, having offended Li Jingyuan, she must desperately cling to Li Shuyuan, this lifeline. I have to say, Lu Qingqing does have some skills, actually managing to make Li Shuyuan keep his body pure as jade for her. 5 days later, Li Shuyuan sat at the table with a face like a dead man. Back then on the battlefield, I injured my manhood and cannot consummate the marriage. Back then on the battlefield, I injured my manhood and cannot consummate the marriage. But this isn't my fault. I fought for the nation and was left with injuries and ailments. Damn, that was for the greater good of family and country. If you resent me for this, then you don't understand what is important. He glanced at me coolly. But don't worry, I won't drive you away. The Marquise's household can afford to support you for a lifetime. But if you want to leave the Marquise's household, there is only a letter of divorce, no amicable separation. I sat there, listening quietly to the end. Only one thought in my mind: can't perform his husbandly duties, wants me to remain a living widow, and still wants my dowry. How can someone be such a hypocrite? If it were an ordinary woman, her world would probably be collapsing right now. Either stay in the inner courtyard as a widow for life, or take a letter of divorce and become an abandoned wife. 2 paths, both dead ends. But I'm different. I lowered my eyes, suppressing the corners of my mouth that were about to curl up. The system's mechanical voice exploded in my mind, carrying a hint of eerie excitement. Li Shuyuan's manhood has been destroyed. The next second, Li Shuyuan's agonizing wails rang in my ears. His hands clutched desperately at his crotch. His face turned deathly pale in an instant, veins bulging on his forehead. Ah, Imperial Physician. Quick, Jan, quickly call the Imperial Physician. He lied about being impotent to avoid sleeping with his wife while sneaking around with his mistress. So the system made it real, the scream I let out. He tried to use a fake injury to manipulate her, and now he is permanently retired from the game. And the best part, his mistress had to pretend it was an old injury to save face, trapping them both in a lie that ruined their sex life forever. Talk about a self-Dan own. He curled into a ball from the pain, convulsing in the chair, his lips turning blue, his voice completely distorted. Before I could even react, and the door was pushed open with a bang. Lu Qingqing burst in with her maidservant, her eyes red and swollen, as if she had been waiting outside for this moment all along. She hurried forward, her gaze sweeping over Li Shuyuan, who was in so much pain he nearly passed out. Her eyes shifted slightly, showing not a trace of panic. She bent down to help him up, saying gently, "My lord, this is your old ailment acting up again. I've always been the one to care for you before. I'll take you back to Yilin Courtyard right away to recuperate properly." Watching her calm and composed manner, then looking at Li Shuyuan's pitiful state with his lips turning blue from pain and his whole body trembling, I couldn't help but speak up. "He seems to be in terrible pain. Shouldn't we call the Imperial Physician?" Lu Qingqing immediately cut me off, questioning, if outsiders were to learn that the Marquis is impotent, wouldn't that ruin the Marquis Manor's reputation? How would my lord be able to go out and socialize in the future? Heaven and earth be my witness. I really was just afraid he might die from the pain. But since Lu Qingqing insisted it was just an old ailment, what could I do about it? I was just a merchant's daughter who didn't understand propriety after all. Li Shuyuan's cries and wails continued intermittently throughout the night. Early the next morning, I brought Shuizhou to the main courtyard to pay my respects. As soon as I entered, I saw Lu Qingqing kneeling ramrod straight on the ground, both eyes bruised and dark, crying so hard she could barely breathe. Li Shuyuan looked even more frightening than his face deathly pale. His whole body iced and cold, his breath barely there, like he'd just been pulled out of a coffin. The mother Jan and Janlaw sat to one side, the prayer beads in her hands rubbed so hard they were practically sparking. The imperial physician sighed and shook his head. The Marquis, that aspect, is basically ruined. The mother Jan and Janlaw's body swayed, nearly toppling over. But there is one thing this old man doesn't understand. Jan, this is clearly an old injury from the battlefield. So why did it only flare up today? This old man will prescribe a few doses of pains and relieving medicine first to ease the Marquis's suffering. As for a complete recovery, he shook his head again. It is basically impossible, old madam. Please accept this with mourning. At least the Marquis is in no danger of losing his life, Jan. That is already a great fortune. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Shuyuan on the bed suddenly opened his eyes, his lips trembling as he asked in a thread Jan-like voice. I really am ruined? I don't believe it. Just a few days ago I still. The imperial physician said nothing. The mother Jan and Janlaw's eyes rolled back, and she completely fainted. I quickly helped the mother Jan and Janlaw lie down and dragged the imperial physician from the room to treat her. Li Shuyuan refused to believe he was really ruined and grabbed the imperial physician to stop him from leaving, even splashing a cup of tea on me. They say a woman's heart is the most venomous. This lord is so ill, yet you're taking the physician away. I stared at Lu Qingqing with a half-dan smile and said, if the Marquis doesn't trust the imperial physician, why not find someone to test it out? After speaking, I thoughtfully closed the door. You two were having quite a blast on the rockery in my courtyard before. Wonder if you can make the room shake today. 1 minute later, Li Shuyuan's furious roar came from inside the room. How could this happen? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. He raged impotently in the room for a long time, accompanied by the sound of smashing things and Lu Qingqing's crying. After a few minutes, Li Shuyuan came out. When he saw me squatting at the door cracking melon seeds, the fury on his face was practically overflowing. What are you still doing here? Get lost. I looked at him innocently and kindly suggested, how about trying again at the rockery in my courtyard? Now that he had lost his pride as a man, he was so angry he'd lost all reason and roared furiously. Get lost. All of you get lost. Sure enough, everyone has their own ailments, and those with different ailments cannot conspire together. Your second brother can't get it up. Why are you yelling at me? But I still obediently got lost and went back to my courtyard to eat pork knuckle. Ever since Li Shuyuan got sick, the entire Marquis Manor was shrouded in gloom, and no one knew how word of this illness got out. Everyone was saying that the Marquis had been fundamentally injured, and would probably be unable to perform in bed from now on. My mother Jan and Janlaw's face grew uglier by the day, and her ugliness all ended up falling on my head. She scolded me for being useless, unable to keep my husband's heart, and said that Li Shuyuan marrying me was truly 8 lifetimes worth of bad luck. Don't say it. Don't say it. I anxiously wanted to cover her mouth, but I still couldn't stop the system notification from sounding. Li Shuyuan has successfully bound bad luck entanglement. I froze in place. My mother Jan and Janlaw saw me standing there in a daze and scolded me even more vigorously. Standing there pretending to be a wooden statue? Why don't you get lost and reflect on yourself? If Yuaner doesn't get better, I won't let you off, Jan, madam. Madam, disaster has struck. The butler tumbled in, covered in sweat, his voice trembling. Someone has reported that the Lord embezzled military funds. The Ministry of Revenue investigated for 3 days, and there is both witness and material evidence. They submitted a memorial this morning. The Emperor is furious and has issued an edict stripping the Lord of his general position, revoking his military authority in consideration of his merits from the campaign. His life has been spared. Instead, 30 strokes of the rod to be carried out immediately. He has already been held down in the courtyard, and Eunuch Wang from the Eastern Depot is personally overseeing the punishment. Madam, you must go quickly. What? My mother Jan and Janlaw shot up. Her vision went black, and she fainted again. I remembered what happened on our wedding night. The first thing he said after lifting my veil was, "The military situation at the border is urgent. How can a real man indulge in the pleasures of the boudoir? I won't be sleeping tonight." He thought he could use this to manipulate me, not expecting that the system had already sounded in my mind. Li Shuyuan bound to lie, urgent military situation, effective immediately. The next second, the imperial edict ordering him to deploy arrived at the manor. I had thought he would die on the battlefield, but didn't expect he'd come back having falsely claimed military merits. My mother Jian-in-Jian-Law, after waking from her faint, using seriously ill as an excuse, ordered me to kneel before the Buddha statue all night reciting sutras, to pray for her recovery. I hurriedly comforted her. Mother, you've only been fainting recently due to anger attacking your heart. After a few days of rest, you'll be fine. I really was thinking of her well-being. I was afraid that if I agreed, the Marquis Manor would really be holding a funeral. Unfortunately, she is used to being domineering and can't stand anyone defying her. She directly splashed a bowl of tea on me. I'm not dead yet. How dare you defy and be unfilial? When I say kneel, you must kneel. As soon as I knelt down, my mother Jian-in-Jian-Law spat out a mouthful of blood that sprayed 3 feet. The servant's screams almost drowned out the system's voice. The old madam has contracted an incurable disease and will die in 7 days. I hurriedly put down the Buddhist scriptures to find Li Shuyuan, but outside the door I heard Lu Qingqing tearfully complaining to Li Shuyuan. Brother Shuyuan, it is not that I'm overthinking, but what has been happening recently is really abnormal. I really was pregnant back then. I was hiding it from Shuji, but in the end, it somehow became water, soil discomfort. That was really a fully formed male fetus. Woo woo woo. And you pretended to be impotent. But after that, you really became. After speaking, Lu Qingqing grabbed his hand and said through blurred tears, Brother Shuyuan, even if you can't perform, I will always love you. I only care about you as a person, but Shuji is even trying to steal away the imperial physician. She is so vicious. Li Shuyuan held Lu Qingqing, his voice turning cold. If the Marquis Manor hadn't fallen on hard times back then, how would I have married a merchant's daughter? Originally, the plan was to embezzle her dowry, then send her to Prince Shen, and finally divorce her on grounds of infidelity. With her reputation completely ruined, we could even seize the Shu family's businesses. But who would have known she'd turn out to be the bane of our Marquis' household? I originally thought she was just a merchant's daughter with no insight, but I never expected her methods in the inner quarters to be so formidable. We need to act quickly before things get out of hand. Prince Shen is 70 this year, and what he loves most are young maidens of 16. He is cruel by nature, and has ruined the reputations of countless women. Miss, they want you dead. After returning to the room, Shuizhou spoke with a sobbing voice. I patted her back to comfort her. Don't be afraid, we won't die. Being afraid is useless. Attack is the best way to protect ourselves. I whispered instructions in Shuizhou's ear. I had someone find an imperial physician to treat Mother Jian-in-Jian-Law, then went to Li Shuyuan's room and tearfully said, Mother heard you were beaten with the rod, and before she could catch her breath, she collapsed. The imperial physician says Mother has attacked heart from Z-fire and told us to prepare for her funeral. I wiped my tears and continued, I want to go to the estate and bring elder sister back, so that if Mother really doesn't make it, she can see her off one last time. Mother toiled her whole life. I hired the best carpenter to make her a coffin of golden Nanmu wood, worth a fortune. Rest assured, no matter how much silver it costs, I will ensure Mother's send off is grand and glorious. Li Shuyuan looked at me, the murderous intent in his eyes subsiding somewhat. I knew what he was thinking. My mother Jian-in-Jian-Law's grand funeral would cost my money. As long as he couldn't bear to part with this sum of silver, he wouldn't make a move against me at this time. These past few days I personally attended to Mother Jian-in-Jian-Law's medicine, never leaving it to others. The madams from various families who came to visit Mother Jian-in-Jian-Law all praised my filial piety. I looked at Mother Jian-in-Jian-Law lying immobile on the bed, smiling gently. The Marquise's injury hasn't fully healed yet, and Sister Jian-in-Jian-Law just returned to the estate. Being able to show filial piety at Mother's bedside is my blessing. Yes, Li Shuyuan spent all day in his room studying his little ding-jan-ding that couldn't lift its head. Li Jingyuan went on a shopping spree for rouge and powder to doll herself up after returning to the estate. The one watching Mother Jian-in-Jian-Law reluctantly take her last breath was actually me. I spent lavishly to hold a grand funeral for her. I knelt before the coffin burning paper offerings. Lu Qingqing looked at the golden Nanmu wood coffin worth a fortune, whispering mockingly in my ear. The Shu family is truly wealthy enough to rival a nation. What a pity, Dan, all of this will be mine from now on. You gave the old madam such a grand funeral just to curry favor with Brother Shu Yuan, didn't you? Too bad, it is useless. Brother Shu Yuan doesn't love you at all. The position of the Marquis Manor's wife is mine now, and your dowry is mine too. I didn't say anything, but blinked at Shui Zhou. Right after that, Li Jingyuan rushed in and slapped Lu Qingqing 3 times across the face. Dan, slap, slap. Why, it is not enough that you seduced my fiancé, but you even seduced my stable hand. He was clearly my stable hand. He already promised to elope with me, but after returning to the manor he wants to marry you instead. Why do all the men who are mine have to be stolen away by you? Li Jingyuan had her engagement broken off and then lived through dark, miserable days at the estate. Jianqi had long since become mentally unstable, and my having Shui Zhou bribe the stable hand was the final straw that broke her. All the servants of the Marquis Manor had been transferred by Shui Zhou to the front courtyard to receive guests who came to pay their respects. Lu Qingqing shouted for ages, but no one came to help. And she was beaten until she was barely breathing. Who knows which careless maid left the rusty scissors here. In the chaos, Lu Qingqing grabbed them and stabbed them into Li Jingyuan's abdomen. By the time Li Shuyuan and the guests heard the commotion and rushed over, Li Jingyuan was already lying in a pool of blood. Among the guests who came was the prefect of Jingzhou, who immediately arrested Lu Qingqing on the spot. One funeral banquet turned into 2. Jian the guests came to mourn the mother Jian and Jian Law, and then mourned Li Jingyuan. The successive tragedies left Li Shuyuan so devastated he was on the verge of collapse. He lay in bed, his face pale as he tried to persuade me. Gi, our Marquis Manor has already lost 2 lives. We can't let Qingqing get into trouble again, or the manor's reputation will be ruined. Prince Shen has deep connections with Lord Zhang, the minister of the Court of Judicial Review. The prince promised me that as long as you go keep him company for a drink, he'll ask Lord Zhang to release Qingqing. Don't worry. When Qingqing comes back, you'll still be the lady of the manor. No one can surpass you. I was shocked. Who doesn't know that Prince Shen is lustful and cruel? If I go to the prince's manor, what will happen to my reputation? Li Shuyuan's face darkened. If you hadn't brought Li Jingyuan back from the estate, none of this would have happened. Besides, you're the lady of the Marquis Manor. Now that I've lost the Emperor's favor, you should sacrifice everything for the manor. If we can connect with the prince and he puts in a good word for me with the Emperor, I can regain the imperial favor. I thought he truly wanted to save Lu Qingqing, but it turns out it was only for his own career. I asked him back. So as long as it is good for the manor, any sacrifice is acceptable. Of course. As soon as Li Shuyuan said this, he discovered he couldn't move. He looked at me in terror as I took out a set of sky Jian blue clothes, thin as cicada wings, Jian the kind of clothes only worn by the most seductive male entertainers at Nanfeng Pavilion. I gently changed him into the clothes. Husband, men should talk less about their hardships and more about being a virgin. Although you used to be a rotten cucumber, now you're a wilted squash. But don't feel inferior. You still have your backside. Your backside is still virgin. Eunuch Wang of the Eastern Depot is the one truly in the Emperor's favor. The prince is old rather than relying on the prince. Better to rely on the all-Zan powerful Eunuch Wang. Last time when Eunuch Wang beat Li Shuyuan with a rod by imperial decree, I knew about his unusual preferences. When Li Shuyuan planned to send me to Prince Shen, I was also planning to send him to Eunuch Wang's bed. This time I didn't use the system, but relied on myself. The Bodhisattva opens her eyes. Good and evil are clearly distinguished. When I picked up Li Shuyuan from the Eastern Depot, he collapsed on the ground, lips red and swollen with broken skin, exposed skin covered in bruises, thin undergarment stained with blood, incontinent in public. Who would have thought the once high and spirited great general could now only crawl on the ground? Can't die even if he wants to. Lives on to amuse others. Li Shuyuan stared at me with bloodshot eyes, wishing he could tear me apart alive. Shuji, I'm begging you to kill me. I don't want to live as a cripple like this. I watched him crawl helplessly on the ground in a mad rage, laughing. Isn't this good? Although you can only crawl 4 steps, even a 5-dan pace viper can't poison you to death. Li Shuyuan fell gravely ill and was paralyzed in bed. I have no mother Jian and Jianlaw or sisters Jian and Jianlaw above, no childhood sweethearts or concubines below. My days are better than a deity's, whichever page the wind blows to. I read that page. Whichever page I can't understand, I tear out that page. In spring, I chat and laugh merrily with young masters out on excursions in the countryside. In summer, I admire lotus flowers by the lake with boatmen rowing their boats. In autumn, I gallop across the western hills with young hunting lads. In winter, I enjoy the snow and compose poetry with the delicate young servant from the manor, while plum blossoms bloom beautifully outside the window. All 4 seasons have their wonderful scenery, and Li Shuyuan can only sit in his wheelchair and watch. But he can only watch. Sometimes he gets angry too, but who cares? May it always be like this, with fresh scenes every year. Okay, ladies, let's cultivate some serious zen amidst this chaos. This story is the ultimate revenge fantasy for anyone who has ever been lied to. She didn't just survive a toxic household, she weaponized their own deceit against them. Every time they lied to hurt her, she just smiled and let the system turn their words into their worst nightmares. What makes this so satisfying is that the villains literally destroyed themselves. The mistress shat herself into social oblivion. The sister Zan in Zan Law lost her fiancé to the woman she defended. And the husband, well, let's just say he is singing soprano now. Ji didn't have to lift a finger in anger. She just stood there, looked pretty, and let the universe and a very petty system do the heavy lifting. She went from being the pitiful merchant's daughter to the untouchable matriarch, who controls the entire estate while her enemies rot in the mess they created. And that ending? Sending her husband to serve the eunuch he tried to suck up to. Dark, twisted, and absolutely poetic. He wanted to use people for power. Now he is being used. It is brutal, but hey, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Now I need to hear from you in the comments. Faye the poop explosion. Faye, was this too gross? Or the perfect punishment for a fake pregnancy? The husband's fate serving eunuch Wang. Justice served or too cruel even for him. The sister card. Would you ever dare your enemy to be your sister after reading this? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tea time. Remember, honesty is the best policy, especially when your wife has a magic system. Love you all.